Hello, everyone. Let me introduce you. Absolutely wonderful human being, beautiful and cute, and such an intelligent and kind person. Michelle Lau. She's a pianist, graduated with master's degree from Canada. We'll talk about this later. And what I would like to do today is um, just to see if from our conversation there will be something that would be interested for both of us and for the listeners, and then maybe I'll have time to edit it and to share with you.
I'm excited. Let's do this.
Okay. All right. So, Michelle, you sent me your website another day, and I just loved it. So, what I'm planning to do is to just read just a few lines, and maybe you could explain a little bit more in depth and in details the background for that.
Sure.
All right. So you wrote, back in university, I had suffered from an injury that surfaced due to a combination of mental and physical hardness, such as overuse. I love that. A lot of overuse we do. That actually prevents us from playing from playing technically free. Poor practice habits. Hello, everyone can relate. And technique and poor mindset. Yeah, and that's why I feel like I also very relate to you, because for me I discovered all the physical illnesses are coming from the situation when our motions, our physical movements are not aligned with our mindset, which is not aligned with what is written in the score. So I would really like to touch on that. My teachers, peers, and doctors couldn't give me the guidance I needed. And talking about being injured was not as safe a musician as it is today. Oh my God, definitely. I had to hide it. I had focal dystonia. I had to take the gap here and tell everyone that I hurt my back, because it was so shameful. It's even strange that in nowadays, nothing is shameful, I think, but just admit that you struggle. It's horrible. So I felt hopeless, alone, and devastated. All right, that's a good start. Can you please
That's a
tell
lot
me?
to start
I
with.
mean, yes, there's so much to dig. Please say everything you feel you need to say about this.
I guess we could start from the very beginning. Let's talk about like the injury,
Okay.
about it being something that came from a combination of a lot of things, and I think for a lot of musicians too, your injury comes from a combination of things. It's not usually one, unless you unfortunately, got hit by a car and you broke your wrist, and that happens. But even then, through the injury, I learned about this mind-body connection. So I'm gonna preface it with that. Your mind and your body are connected, and sometimes in Western medicine, although it's gotten better, and I'm not a doctor, just pointing that out there, but
Mm-hmm.
at least with my experience and the things that I've been told, there's a little bit of a segmentation between the mind and the body, and oftentimes we just treat the body. And that's not going to work because your mind and body are connected. So, for example, if you're feeling like
Mm-hmm.
sad, you're going to feel a little bit slower, heavier with your body. And then if you're trying to power through learning while your body is not willing to do that, then you're just working against yourself. But anyway, I'm going to go backwards now. So, the I had poor technique because my musical upbringing didn't set me up for the necessary technical foundation that I needed when I was entering university. So it was already off to a
Mm-hmm.
rocky start.
Yeah.
Like I had no introduction about arm weight at all going into university.
Or for example, even I remember, sorry to interrupt, but I remember when I went to my professor at university, at conservatory, there was a moment when I wanted to figure out the right fingering, how to find the right fingering. And the response was, well, your previous teacher, you should have been taught, at school how to do that. That's a different level. We're not talking about fingering here. We're talking about higher material and realm. So it's like someone putting the burden like to someone else's shoulders, but no one actually teaches.
Yeah,
And then,
and I think if you're a teacher, there is a certain responsibility to meet your student at the level that they are at, regardless of whatever institutional scripts there are. Like, okay, let's say you're a professor,
Here to
like, oh,
help,
you're
right?
here. Yeah,
Mm.
we're here. We're supposed to talk about higher level stuff. That's my mission. To talk about higher level stuff with a student. Okay, your student's like, I want to do that, but in order for me to access that, to be there with you, I
Yeah.
need to talk about this fingering. So let's
Mm-hmm.
spend 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes on
Mm-hmm.
this fingering, and we'll meet each other up there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
like, no, you figure that out. And then the student's like, well, I don't know how. That's why I'm here.
But isn't it actually relates to the main problem in teaching is that most of the time in between the student and teacher there's a relationship of teacher treats the student as you are here for me, not I'm as a teacher for you to help. You're here for me to bring my status higher. Not every student, not every teacher, of course, but usually it's in very prestigious, you know, prisons, I call them, gold cages. It's like that. They're there for status, reputation, and in fact, I know teachers who actually have this whole attitude about teaching is to get the best students, to let them win competitions, so that could bring teacher status higher. And this is where this whole wrong mentality starts with. It's like, I'm not here to help you. You are here, I'm here to use you and see how good you are as a student so you could raise my reputation. That happens a lot still.
It happens, and it's really unfortunate that people get pulled into another person's ego trip. And we'll just
Exactly.
leave it there. You guys can digest that. But
Mm-hmm.
going back to like the whole technique thing, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the foundation for it. So the first 2 years, I was with a professor who was trying to explain to me arm weight technique, but
Mm-hmm.
the extent of arm weight technique, their explanation was use arm weight. And I'm like, what is that? They're like, you
Okay.
just use arm weight. And you'll demonstrate and then you'll copy. But it's for me at least, it wasn't enough. And to me, arm weight thing was a very abstract thing. And
Yeah.
then from there, I did not really have lessons. And from my memory, this is a bit of like a traumatic experience, so it's a little bit of kind of a blur. But I didn't really have lessons throughout the majority of my
Mm.
undergrad, in the sense that yes, I had scheduled hours, but most of the time in that lesson, we were talking about things that were unrelated to music,
No way.
or yeah, or just like, at least from what I remember. And when I did try to pull things back to the music, let's say I play something, the comments weren't really anything that were helpful. It was like, oh, just do like a wrist circle here, you just need some crescendo. So at that
Right.
time, I was very, very driven. I had dreams that I wanted to achieve. I am a type of person that like won't let things get in my way. So I was like, okay, well, if you're not going to really be what I need right now, at least I can have
Mm-hmm.
lessons to perform or whatever, I'm gonna go and take on that load on my own. I'm gonna go and find resources to help me figure out what this arm weight technique and stuff is. And as a student, didn't exactly have money to like find another teacher. So books, other performers, other students and stuff were my teachers, and a lot of just personal self-discovery. So that was a majority of my undergrad. And then I also just didn't click with my teachers, and I'm sure my teachers did the best they could have with the tools that they had. And so that was my undergrad. So you had Michelle, who didn't have very good technique, trying to figure out her technique on her own, or at least her narrative was, I'm on my own at this point. The burden's on me. And then as a pianist, you're quite isolated. I mean, you're in your practice room for like X amount of hours, drilling certain passages. And it would be difficult, and it was difficult for me to find people to relate to and to be able to speak about this, about like, hey, I'm having trouble with this passage, I don't know what to do, because I had done so much self-analysis and self-exploration on all levels, that when I went to a peer, they were just starting their journey with me, whereas I've already started at that point. I'm way beyond that. So the advice that they gave me, I already tried
Mm-hmm.
and wrestled with it, and either it didn't work for me or I transformed into something else. So I didn't feel like I'd had someone who was able to chew on these things with me. So I had to do that alone.
Yeah.
And then, so that was like the poor mindset, you know, like I'm alone, I have to do something myself, the whole burden's on
Yeah.
me. So that's
Yeah.
weighing down the body.
Yeah.
Technique is not where I want it to be, so that's also another thing that conflicts. So essentially,
Low
after that
self-esteem.
emotion,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all that stuff, lovely stuff, just
Oh,
oh god.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go and you practice and you're like, I gotta get these octave passages. And so your body is not only trying to physically figure out its own mechanism, it's like, oh, now I have this emotional barrier
Yeah.
I gotta bust through too.
Yeah.
So you can see that the body and the mind are just fighting. And then at one point, I got the opportunity to study with a professor in France. So I had to get an entire program ready when I was already mildly injured by that point over the summer because or before the summer because the program was during the summer. And then after the summer program was over, I'm back at university and my professor at that time decided that we would have 3 recitals in September.
Oh no, 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 no. That's the worst
Yeah,
thing.
so yeah, I'm already like overusing myself just to prepare for the summer. And then on top of that, I have that pressure of like, I've got 3 recitals coming up as well. And there's no one out there at that time for me that could help me have the mindset of like how to prepare for this workload. I was still stuck in that mindset of like, everything's on you. Practice, 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 practice. You're not doing well enough, just practice more. Because that's the advice we're given, you know? Don't know how to do octaves? Your hands are too small. Too bad. Just practice more. And like, no, that doesn't help. Anyways, so went to the summer camp thing or summer session, worst session of my life. Just being, just the whole environment was not a learning environment. The professor was not really that encouraging with the comments that came back. So if my self-esteem was like on a scale of 0 to 100 and it was at 0, let's go into the negatives now. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Did you also pay for
So,
that experience?
oh, of course I paid for that
That's
experience.
additional. That's additional. Weight to it.
Yeah, of course.
Nuance. It's like I'm paying for my own torture.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
like that's the other thing because then you're like, well, I'm like self-inflicting this pain, and you're one is very aware of that, but at the same time you feel stuck, and there's also that artist thing where like, oh, you suffer for your art so you can make art, you know. So then it's like, is this healthy suffering or not? But then I've also got this other stuff to deal with, so I'ma just not deal with this right now. I deal with like other more manageable things that I think I can manage. So yeah, got injured. Went to the
That
doctor.
summer, because of that experience, you got really pain in your hands.
Yeah, I think like I already had stuff creeping in the background, but that was the
Mm-hmm.
one that really like ignited it with just physically and mentally
Mm-hmm.
compounded. So I was lucky to find a doctor specifically for musicians where I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think his I think he did open a new door for me about that mind body connection and the facilities that were out there for musicians that are so needed. And so I opened a new door to like performance psychology and all that other stuff. And so then my healing journey started really then, and my insight and looking into and researching more about technique and the mind body connection, the psychology behind learning and using your body and art and thinking like an athlete in that way was something that got me out of my rut. I call it a rut, but it was like a really good 6 years. But yeah, that's my like long story of
How old were you?
this was university, so let's
Right.
say
Middle 20s.
yeah, 18 to 24, like undergrad
Mm-hmm.
and masters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what injury exactly did you have?
No one really knows. I got the broad like tendonitis and not toxic, thoracic outlet syndrome.
What is that?
Thoracic outlet syndrome. So your thoracic, so your chest area, your outlet is basically, so you know how your collarbone here, right?
Yeah.
So in your collarbone, it's where your whole arm attaches, and all the nerves from your spine actually
Mm-hmm.
feed under that collarbone into your arm. So if your shoulders
Okay.
are always tight or they're always depressed, and your collarbone and your muscles are depressing on the nerves,
Uh-huh.
that's why you might get what you think is pain here, but it's
Mm-hmm.
actually in your neck or your back
Oh,
because
interesting.
of the nerves connections here. So basically, I'm not saying like that my medical professionals were untrained. But when it becomes something so general and they don't know what it is, they put the umbrella term of like, oh, it's tendonitis and thoracic outlet syndrome. But through my own like relearning of technique and learning about my body, my mind-body connection, I found for me, it was actually, I would say like 90% mental. And it was my body telling me, hey, what you're doing is not working. And if you're not listening to me, I'm going to stop you from playing so you know what's wrong. So when I started figuring out the emotional, the mental stuff, then all that went away.
Aha. Yeah. Can you describe more about this? Can you talk about more about this? So this is how you realized that your mental health, anxiety or stress affects the condition of your muscles, right? So what was your exit? What was your way out?
My way out of that, or like getting out of the tendonitis feelings and inflammation and all that stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say that there was like one day I was like, I found my lock and key. It was really just a slow burn over the 6 years. But I guess if I was to put down like if there was a breakthrough moment, I would say when I met that doctor for musicians. And he talked about the mind-body connection, and I was like, okay, I should probably look into that a little bit more. And that would probably be the day that I was like, okay, we should probably not just treat the physical ailments, but also the mental ones.
Okay. What would be the advice that you would give someone who struggles with same symptoms and same anxiety in life?
I would invite them to explore whenever they're practicing or their daily life or when they're listening to music, what thoughts are going through their head and how it connects with the body. How you respond to stress, anxiety, negative self-talk, positive self-talk, happiness. Just note what thoughts, how they affect your body, and also vice versa. If you were tense, is there a thought that comes up because they feed back and forth to each other? They do talk to each other in that way. So for example, let's say I'm practicing a passage with octaves and I know that I'm not good at this octave passage. It stresses me out. I feel shame, I feel anxiety, I feel low self-esteem. How is that physically expressing itself as I'm doing this before I even enter that passage? Because it'll start to creep in the moment you get that thought. And you might notice, oh, when I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling stressed, like for me personally, sometimes I hold stress in my shoulders, so the shoulders go up, and not toxic thoracic outlet syndrome, no-brainer.
I love that. For me, it sounds like another name for a dinosaur. Thoracic.
Sometimes
Creeping on your back
on my shoulders.
Exactly.
Like if the shoulders lock, then I can see why a doctor might diagnose me with TOS because the shoulders are impinging on those nerves, and that's probably part of it too. But yeah, I would advise them to really think about what the thoughts are going on in your head, how that affects the body, and record or set a mirror up. That's what really helped me, because it's one thing to really see, at least as a pianist, what your hands look like, but it's another thing to go and look back at your video and listen not only to your sound, but listen to your body and listen to the emotions. Like, you might not know when you do octaves that you like do a funny thing with your elbow. And then you're like, oh, that might explain why this part, my lats hurt. Okay, well, don't do that then. But you might not ever notice that if you had not seen yourself objectively from what would be a third view. And we're so lucky these days to have like cameras and phones, you just set it up.
Easy, yes, easy.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be my invitation for people who are going through any injuries to also check out your mind-body connection and your thoughts.
Right. Just to realize more how your muscles are affected by your mindset. That's another thing I also couldn't understand when the teacher even says, for example, the teacher says rotation, right? Okay. But don't we know that each physical, even if you copy physical motion to the point of millimeters, you copy it's like perfectly. How can you trace what kind of sensation you actually feel inside? Because you can do this rotation with relaxed hand, again, to the best of your understanding what relax is, but what's happening in your mind, what's happening in your chest, what's happening in your back, what's happening in your legs? Do you feel tension and you carry tension in your legs while doing this? Even if you do this, even if this is relaxed, but maybe this muscle here is not relaxed, maybe, like, how do you I could never understand. I really appreciate this whole new trend which appeared about half a century ago, to be more aware about what are you doing physically, about your posture, about what's happening in your neck, what's happening in your shoulder, how to keep your chin, what's happening with your arms, etc. But the thing is, it's time to go beyond that. It's a great way to start, to be actually aware somehow about something, But we need to go on, and we need to realize now we not only need to be aware of how we feel our physical body, but also what's going on in our inner sensations, what's going on with the sound, the mental practice, what I discovered from the beginning, when I was 13, I found that the quality of imagined sound would affect the sensations in my muscle. And you guys can try it right away. If you, for example, imagine a peach in a fiery and bright texture, do you feel like your muscle respond, like they get more tense? Or if you imagine that the same peach in a beautiful watery liquid texture, do you feel how your muscle get relaxed? So our imagination, it's like the same with a lemon. You think about lemon, you get your saliva going. So the same for me, that was the main connection between our imagination of the sound actually directly connects to how we feel in our muscles. What I'm also interested in is, you mentioned that you started learning from the books, but also from the performers, from watching how other great pianists were playing. I would like to know more about that whole process. So how was it like an X-ray? Did you actually feel how the pianist manipulates with the energy? Maybe did you find your way of arm weight, definition? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can. I would say that the way I found, watching performers was, or found information from watching performers, was that I learned that in the same way you were talking about, like, oh, just do rotation like this and make sure things were relaxed, was not enough for me. Especially when I started finding about the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a very like analytical person, and I'm the type of person that likes to get down to the root of issues.
Yay.
It has the most, like, if you change your thoughts, it has the most profound effect across the board that you could never do on like a very surface level micromanaging way. You have to change your thoughts because it controls your body. So when I realized that, okay, I can't play like a professional, I have to think like a professional.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My teacher was saying virtuosity is not in fingers, virtuosity is in your mind.
Yeah. And then I thought, okay, I have to, when I see a professional play, there's one level to say, they use the fingering 3-4-5 because it's better for this passage, or they are using their wrist here, and I notice that the sound decays a little bit better. That's kind of like saying, I have a headache, here's some Advil.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really treating the issue, which might be like just stress or whatever, and you need to go deal with that. So I thought, okay, it's great I know the physical stuff, but why are they doing that? how are they doing that? What
Mm-hmm.
makes them think that three, four,
Mm-hmm.
five was a better idea than one, two, three?
Mm-hmm.
What makes them think that they're doing this? Because I'm pretty sure they're not necessarily aware that they're doing this. Because they could be doing this with the wrist because they think it manipulates the sound. They could be doing this because
Mm-hmm.
it's an ingrained habit of that's how I release tension. It could just be, oh, in this phrase that I'm thinking about, it does taper and I want to express that physically. It whatever reason doesn't matter as long as you try to figure out why are they thinking the way that they're thinking. And so the only way that I could figure that out without having the chance of actually asking them, because partly they might not even know why they're doing that. I ended up really observing everything that when I watch someone
Mm-hmm.
play, I really try to figure out what the thought and the energy and the emotions and what's going on in the piece, how are they all connected? And I can't really explain it clearly enough without it sounding like some like esoteric voodoo magic.
Well, it comes through your intuition, right? Intuition is a
Yeah.
big part of
So
research.
I just watch and I just open up my brain and I let everything connect the way it needs to connect in that moment and then I evaluate afterwards. But that's
Mm-hmm.
how I would say my process is. It all comes from why are they doing what they're doing because of how they're thinking? What are they thinking about?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I love that. I had the same experience. The way I found about internal singing, and of course, we all heard about, you know, Rubinstein saying "sing, sing, sing," and every teacher, you watch Masterclass Lang Lang, and it's basically ooh, 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 whoa, oh, and so you understand they are singing Glenn Gould, right? But again, why? What's behind that? And how exactly? That's another big question. Because just saying singing is very abstract. And so in my class, there was this girl, and we met at home, and she played Rachmaninoff third concerto, the last part. And I've noticed that because I was staying right beside her, and she started doing this weird way of breathing. And what was she doing? like this, like, and I asked her why. I asked her, why are you doing this? And she said, I don't know how to stop it. I wish I don't. So she wasn't aware why, but I wanted to know why. And that's, for example, a little example, right? Like what you're saying. And sometimes, in many cases, my students sometimes they go and they listen to good performances. It's what you're about to say and what you were saying, and they say, yeah, I saw that this pianist was doing this movement with this, and I was actually saying, and I was watching it too, and I was actually saying, no, actually he's doing opposite, and this as a side effect of a completely different movement behind it. So sometimes what we see is not exactly what's inside, like in the world the same. There's a lot of delusional things. You think, oh, that person is doing this, but actually he's doing what opposite things. So yeah, that's another reason why just by imitating and just imitating physical emotions and lines and movements, it's the wrong way to go. You need to go why. You need to go, where does it come from? Yeah.
I think it's a good place to start though, because I don't think because intuition is developed from a lot of data. So the only one of the reasons why I was able to do what I was able to do is because I had a lot of data. Now, where did I get that data from? It wasn't just from watching. You have to experience it yourself. So yeah, let's say performer does 3 4 5 and they do this with the wrist. So I will go back and I will take a video of myself or I will watch myself in the mirror. I do the exact same thing. And then I basically reverse engineer it. So I'll be like, okay, they did 3 4 5. Why? Technically, does it help? This release, does it work? And then I'll grade it against myself in the sense like, does the 3 4 5 help me? Does this wrist actually help me? Is it really to release tension for me? And then I'll think, okay, maybe it does. If so, good. Then that's what it completes its process as. Let's say it doesn't release tension. Then I go, okay, well, is it because of the phrasings? Let's start thinking about the sound. Okay, it kind of affected the sound. Now, if it affected the sound, Why would they be thinking that this affects the sound? And then you go into your own world as well. You say, this person does this, and if I did that, what's the outcome? Why is it different? Why is it the same? Why would it not be the same or different? And how can I bridge the gap? And that's when you start to explore not only more about yourself and how other people are playing, but it also starts to develop your own version and your own voice and your own technique that fits for you, because everyone's body is a little bit different too in the way you think. So it's not always just like copy and paste, but I think this self-exploration is also really important to get any person out of their own rut, whether it's a mental thing or a physical thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And what's behind all of that? Like, why do you do this?
For me, I had this inexplicable drive or unexplained drive to just want to play the piano and play music really well. And beyond that, I understood at least the value for me of what it is to be immersed in classical music. That there is a type of world that ends up opening up, whether you're on stage or whatever. And for me, that is something that I liked. And I liked it so much and I had enough passion for it that it drove everything else. I had an obsession, essentially, over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was also thinking that it's somehow connected to almost a surviving mode. You know what I mean? Because everyone does everything in life to survive. So for me, for example, I had so much trauma, and for me also my main passion was to find a way to play piano well, was that, survival mechanism, and of course it includes lots of suffer, but then the more you suffer, the more you want to survive and the more you want to find the answers. So you kind of get addicted, you know. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna talk about the social matrix, yeah, or the internet and
Just connecting one's self-worth
the quantity.
to the metrics and analytics that are given can be a very slippery slope.
Why?
Because humans are not numbers. Like your worth is not something that can be quantitated. But I think especially for the younger generation, where they're literally been growing up in an environment where the number of likes, the number of views, the number of comments you get is a social badge. Oh, I have 20,000 followers, and then everyone in your circle's like, wow, you got 20,000 followers, you must be like basically famous in your world, and so there's a sense of uplifting of pride and self-esteem that comes along with it, and from there you can start to chase it, and that can be really unhealthy. But I think it's even more toxic in the classical music world because with the way that we're trained, our worth is sometimes equated to our art and how good of a quality it is. And what better metric of saying how good your music is by the number of views you get. I managed to reach out to these people. I get so many of these likes and stuff, and it can be a very slippery slope to go down. Or you put your whole yourself into your art, and your art and you become one, but you kind of need a division between that for health's sake. And you put all this work on the internet and you get 0 views or very limited views, whereas someone else does something very silly and they get like 1 million views, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? What are they doing right? When at the end of the day, no one's doing anything right or wrong. Like, you're literally battling a computer algorithm which doesn't put any consideration into other more important factors aside from how can I keep people on this app longer. That's really it. It's like a sweatshop essentially.
Yeah.
And you have to be really careful about detaching yourself from those metrics and know what it is that you want when you're using social media.
What do you want?
What do I want for social media?
Yeah. What's your reason? Why do you use social
There's
media?
a bunch of reasons. First reason is it's my playground to explore who I am
Okay.
as quickly as I can. and to be able to find my community or my tribe, so to speak, with who I am, and to explore that, and just to meet like-minded individuals.
Connect.
The other thing, yeah, just to connect. I mean, that's social media, like
Yeah, okay.
connect people with. So you might as well use it for that, you know.
Yeah.
The other thing is to hopefully use my journey, whatever it is going to manifest itself, and the knowledge that I have, to connect with people who have also or have been in a similar place with me or are going through that similar place. I want to try to provide them with at least the knowledge that I've been able to gather, so that they don't have to go through what I went through. Because I didn't have this, and like, boy, did it suck. So if I can help someone else not go through that, that's great. So yes, I do hope to have a lot of followers and to reach a lot of people, but it's not because I want to, you know, like add some nice seasoning to my ego or any of that sort. It's just, if I know that I have, you know, if I have 20,000 followers or 50,000 followers or whatever, it means that I'm able to reach a wider crowd, and I can spread whatever happy energy, positive vibes or knowledge or whatever, and just to be of a positive service to this planet here while I'm in existence.
If we could share our little wisdom from, you know, our experience, we can say that when you start, of course, it's a good place to start when you're motivated to connect with like-minded people, to share, to also explore yourself, to do something with ease and have just fun with what you do and discovering new qualities in yourself. Another reason is to help with that. It's also very satisfying and gratifying. The main reason not to forget is that you do it because you love it. So that's a good for a start. Now what happens is, if algorithm is not picking up on you, is a good reminder, like what you said, is not you doing something wrong. Of course, it could motivate you to try different ways, in a good way, but in a toxic way, it would be like, again, there is no, what is this word? I mean, it hurts when you give so much and you don't get much back. Yeah. So the pain of this will be there. But the way to overcome it is to keep reminding yourself that, first of all, you do it because you love it and you just enjoy the process. And second of all is, for those of you who may be just starting, you don't know, but I do. At some point, you think the more numbers, the higher numbers, the better you will feel. But actually what happens, you reach a certain number, and after that, you actually don't feel the number at all. And if you're miserable, you still feel miserable. And if you continue growing, I actually call it a curse, because what happens is that 1,000 or millions of people watch you, and you actually receive that energy. I mean, especially if you are hypersensitive, you can definitely feel it. I remember I was just leaving a comment to a guy who had 1 million subscribers, and he replied to me, and I just felt that I don't even know him. It was just a random kind of, you know, thing that YouTube recommended me. I'm not even thrilled that, you know, he replied to me, but what I felt is how it feels for him to be in the pool of 1 million subscribers. And it felt absolutely horrible to me. I just felt, oh my God, I couldn't breathe. The pressure and anxiety of expectation is like, no way. And this is where I understood you have to know what would be a healthy number for you, to how many people you actually want to connect, to how many exactly people you want to connect. It could be 20,000, maybe 30,000. But I believe if you go beyond, you're not going to enjoy it at all. And I deleted my social media, like Facebook and stuff. I still have something on Instagram, but it was just because I was doing a masterclass and someone asked me to create it to get a reputation going. But we'll see. I mean, I'm actually planning to revive my Instagram and continue my YouTube with new content, which is more fun and much easier to make. And I think this is actually the best way to start, something that is easier to make and for fun. Because especially if you invest in the beginning so much and you get 2 or 3 views, you just, oh my God,
Yeah, the
that
rate of
hurts.
return, you're like, that didn't work out.
No. And that's also not healthy, because also even with social media, it's a relationship. And in a healthy relationship, what happens is that it's balanced. As much as you give, as much as you receive. But if you invest so much in the beginning and you receive so little, and the worst thing, you don't know why, then I mean, it really hurts. It really hurts. So I would suggest not to invest so much in the beginning and just do it like super easy for fun, and then just see, how it goes. But yeah, always remember that the more is not necessarily better, could be much worse. And at some point, I just started prioritize my time, my quiet time, the silence from people. I love it. I remember I loved comments, and now like I get a comment maybe once in a month, and I'm so happy about it. Sometimes I even get a negative comment, and I'm so happy about the negative comment as well.
It's just engagement, it's great.
I mean, it's great as long as it's not too much, You get one negative comment in a month, it's fun. You get negative comments every hour, it's not fun. It's like, leave me alone. What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, we are human and we have limits. Social media,
Mhm.
in both a blessing and a curse, does not have limits in the sense of how many people you can connect with in a way. Like, you can connect with anyone all over the world, and if you happen to go viral, your phone's going to heat up with all that stuff. And we're human. Like, at some point, like, I love how you mentioned the idea of like you're going to reach a certain number where it doesn't mean anything anymore, because
Mhm.
the mind just literally cannot fathom like 20,000
Mhm.
people are viewing my video. It just like, and I'm not coming from a place of ego where it's like I got 20,000 views or whatever, but it's just too much, and the brain just turns off.
You cannot feel it.
Left,
No.
yeah, it's left with as if you had 0 views. It's just like
Mhm.
a number. So I really also like that you brought up the fact of just start with no expectations, start with fun, start with happiness, and just start with where you're at. And if that's your phone on your piano, that's great. That's where you want to
Mhm.
start. That's where you start
Mhm.
exploring, like, oh, this is actually going to work out for me. And this whole journey is just, to me, anyways, and how I use social media is really just self exploration. It'll
Mhm.
come a time where you're like, oh, I'm starting to get more views, and I do want to make my video quality a little better. Maybe I'll get a tripod. Then get a tripod. And it's this slow growth that I think also helps people prepare themselves for that bigger boom that happens if they start to grow and want to go in that direction. Because
Mhm.
you need to build up that skin of resilience, and also knowing what you want out of social media and all that stuff has to come very slowly. Because if you, let's say, start on one day with that phone on their piano, you get a bunch of views, you end up getting randomly like 30,000 followers, you will not know how to handle that at all. There's going to be so much pressure, and you'll be like, at first maybe you'll be like really excited you got 30,000 followers, like that's amazing to begin with.
Mhm.
But then after that, you have not been equipped enough to handle that, and it can go down a very slippery slope. So for anyone starting with social media, just start with where you're at, with what you have, and just
Mhm.
just have fun and be yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, even if you're trying to change yourself a little bit to be the next reel or to be the next person, you're gonna wind up at that place where you get 100,000 likes, 100,000 views, or whatever, where they won't mean anything. And then
Yeah.
you're gonna realize, oh wow, I just made an image of myself that isn't myself, that can't live up to this, and I want to go back to who I was. But now you got 100,000 people who didn't know who you were, and that's another like thing you have to deal with. So just be you and have fun and
Mm.
show up in the world being you, having
Yeah.
fun. Like, life is just a dance, it's not a race. Just be you and have fun. Easier said than done, I totally know.
Yeah, but it's the ego. But it's the same what actually just came to my mind when you were talking about the numbers. The best analogy to this would be food. So let's say you're hungry, you're starting your channel, yeah? And you take the first bite. Oh my God, it's the most delicious bite. Your first subscribers, I still remember the name of my first subscriber, and it's just like, oh my God. And I remember how I got 20 subscribers, and that was absolutely amazing. And then 200, and then what started happening is that you eat more and more. And at some point you stop feeling the taste. And at some point you feel, okay, I'm fed up, but I keep eating. And it's actually start having pain. So what you said, our body has limits, so our mind has limits as well. And for me, when I started, each subscriber was like a gold. And now I know subscribers are still growing, but frankly, I don't know their names, because with the first subscriber, I was connecting, I was chatting, I was messaging. It was so much more satisfying because you could really connect. That's another thing. You cannot connect with everyone, you see? And so, yeah, at some point you just need to know, okay, that's my plate and there is 10 dumplings in them and that's what I'm gonna eat, and that's what gonna satisfy me. And no, thank you. I don't want the second plate.
I love this analogy with food that you have too, because it's so versatile in the sense like, okay, you start your channel and you taste something and it's amazing, and there's going to be this latch of like, I want that again. I want that scoop of ice cream again and again, and then you get sick of it. And now you can wind up in that mental space where it's like, oh, I'm sick of ice cream. Like, why am I sick of ice cream? This can't be happening. Well, okay, go try some popsicles. Go try a dumpling. Go try something else. And it's also going to be your next, oh wow, this dumpling's amazing. I want to like have 20 of these. And to me, that's totally healthy because you get tired of something and your creativity, whatever, is just, getting bored. Okay, go find something else. And that's how you start to grow as a person, and you learn about yourself and you learn about your skills, or just, be at the edge of your personality and you come out a little more and you just get to expand. You're going to get tired of dumplings and ice cream sooner or later. Like, that's going to bound to happen. A steak or vegetable somewhere out there that you also enjoy. And those who follow you are gonna follow you. When you go find those vegetables, there's gonna be people who be like, I don't want vegetables. Fine. You can leave, go find someone else, stay with your steak. And when I'm in vegetable land, I'm gonna find more vegetable people and we're gonna have a happy party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think if you approach life and your social media with that abundance mindset and just growth and your personal growth, like unless you wind yourself up in a mental toxic hellhole, you're gonna be a happy person.
Oh gosh, yes. But yeah, it can be very dangerous though. So it's good that you have the correct mindset from the beginning. But again, sometimes maybe you should go through all this pain to actually crystallize this lesson and just like hold on to it. And it's like, okay, this way it will work, this way it will not work, It's like, let me make my own mistakes.
Yeah, make mistakes. Like, I think there's this thing about maybe in the way that language forms or the cultural mindsets that we're in where we have positive and negative emotions. It's positive to be happy, it's negative to be sad. But realistically, there's nothing bad or good about these emotions. They're just emotions and they're there to be your compass to navigate. So, make friends with those negative emotions because they're going to tell you something. Let's say you're having that ice cream and you start to feel sad and then you're like, "Why am I feeling sad? This really sucks." Like, no, sadness is telling you that it's not working here. Sadness is there. It's your friend to say, "Hey, this ain't working." And then you go, "Okay, let's go and see what will be happiness. Where can we go now?" Because sadness has directed you to happiness.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Friend all the emotions. They're there for you at the end of the day.
They're your friends.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to suffer. Just know your limit and how much. Know when enough is enough.
Yeah, I actually heard that depression has the same meaning. It has both meanings, basically. One is if you're depressed, that means that something in your life is not what's supposed to bring you happiness, I mean, duh.
Like, okay, yes.
And so what people usually do, they're afraid to change, and so they go into antidepressants to suppress that very helpful feeling. And the second use of depression is to also, it all comes to childhood trauma. You can suppress it in your life for some time, but just for that amount of time. And so depression actually just tells you have to work through it. You cannot suppress it anymore. So yeah, I can totally relate to it. Yeah. I had the same feeling with when I had focal dystonia. Maybe I don't know if you want to hear a little bit about it.
I want to hear. Whatever you're willing to go to reenact.
Yeah. What is very interesting is that I try to share sometimes that on forums, but again, forums very toxic in my opinion, place, and no one believed me. They were like, "There's no way you're playing this way if you had focal dystonia for 7 years." And I was like, what can I do? Well, I have 2 certificates to show you that, taking from
I'm playing right now and stuff.
2 best clinics. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also like people talk about focal dystonia, it's like such a big thing. No, it's not a big thing, You just...
Or it doesn't have to be a big thing.
It doesn't have to be. Exactly. As long as you make it a big thing. Like my friend, she got cancer, right? And she recovered, and then ask you, how did you feel when you got cancer? And she was like, well, I've been working in that restaurant all my life, and then the day I actually finally quit and I decided to retire and have my horse and have a good time, I realized I have cancer. And my attitude was like, this is so annoying. It's gonna take some time before I can get to my horse again. So that attitude, and then she was just lying down and she didn't really take any medicine. She was just imagining this light going through her body, again, working mentally through it. And so it's the same thing, like focal dystonia, no, it's just a little bump, And so for me, obviously, I realized it was 100%. Well, 99, but it's actually 100. But what I'm trying to say is
I understand.
Yeah. Well, it's because I'm trying to say it 100% was connected mentally, but of course there was a physical motion. But again, physical comes from mental, so let's say it's 100%. Yeah. So we established that, today. But it was definitely. So for those who maybe struggle with focal dystonia, for me the answer was stop playing classical music because association with tension. Remove myself from a stressful, dangerous, anxious situation. It could be education. It could be your partnership, anything. It could be a career as well. Could give you some pressure. And the third thing was faith. Without faith, nothing would ever happen. Today is Easter, so let's talk about faith. I was actually baptized on Easter. I'm not religious, but I do believe in Jesus because I felt him. That felt so good, And he healed my hands. I prayed a lot. I prayed with a Bible study group for maybe 1 year. Also, it was the first time I actually could open up what you were saying. It was so shameful to talk about this. And here I am in a Bible study group where no one is a classical pianist and everyone is there to pray for you. And I'm like, Emma, what would you like us to pray for? And I'm just like bursting in tears. I was like, I cannot play. And so we're holding hands in this circle and they're all praying for me. There's so much gratitude in this. There's so much love in that. There's so much power in this. And then I was going to church and I was singing and I was going to this, African American church and I was dancing with them and singing and I was spreading my arms and I let the pastor hug me and pass to me Holy Spirit. I felt it in my stomach, I swear. I'm not pregnant though. So like everything was just beautiful. So that made me, and every time I would come to the piano, I would open up, I would thank God for letting me play for maybe 5 minutes. And I would start playing and I start playing Disney songs, I can show you the world. I started playing supposing it is Christian songs, very beautiful stuff, like anime. There's so much beautiful music. I remember your post about that. There's so much beautiful music to play rather than apart from classical. And then I started playing more and more and more. And then I was able to start my YouTube channel. And the first thing that I uploaded was freshly learned first Etude by Chopin. The next one was number 4. Where I played and I felt like your hands are plug in electricity. And I remember I was coming back and I won. I felt I won it. And so the faith and pray, knowing that I will heal, plays probably the biggest part in healing process, apart from, just removing yourself from bad environment and putting yourself in a relaxed environment as you can, obviously. I mean, much stuff is happening, but there's so much beautiful stuff is happening as well in the world. And the third thing was, and that came to me in my dream, that I was holding too much tension still when I was playing, and I learned how to play the piano with passive hands, so like nothing. And which we never taught, and you can never imagine that you can play with a completely passive hand, because you're supposed to stick to the keyboard, you're supposed to be on the keyboard, so you need some kind of pressure. But there will be pressure, it's just the question of where does it come from. Does it come from holding to the keyboard, from your anxiety, like you said, or from clinging fingertips, passive hand, aligning your body to what is written in the music and what you imagine in your mind, and playing with the weight of your body. I always say you don't play with your fingers, you play with your body, you play with a free energy in your body. So that last component of, oh, that's how it feels like to play with passive hands. I never knew that. And it all kind of came together. And so I still cannot write by hand. So if I write by hand, I have to write with the very big letters. And that's the reason I was only 1 year from getting my doctor degree. It would be like Dr. Newman. Oh my God, Dr. Newman. I mean, it's meant to be together, But I just didn't go because I couldn't write and I couldn't type. Now I can type, it's fine. I can type, but again, I had to learn how to gently touch the keyboard. You watch those ASMR videos when they gently touch the keyboard and you do the same.
Start an ASMR channel.
Yeah, ASMR about how to touch the key with love, and whisper, So that was it. But of course, the biggest part was, and that's already, it was happening when I already was half through of my teaching of how to play piano well, when I found that everything comes from mind and from free energy of your body and from internal singing, and we create music in between notes. But I still couldn't understand what was wrong. And in fact, I don't know if you know, but with my graduation concert exam, I never told it to my teacher, Pavel Narcissian, if you watch this, please know that when we were playing a second concerto by Rachmaninoff, and I didn't tell him I had focal dystonia. So he was considering to be a lazy student, and sometimes he was, I would coming once, maybe twice in a month, maybe even, probably once in 2 months, and he will be like, well, if you don't want to study with me, out, And I still couldn't tell him I didn't come because I couldn't play, It was so shameful, painful as well.
And it shouldn't be shameful and painful. You should be able to, go to your teacher, say, I'm not coming because of this. But it's just, we've built up this society that is the way it is.
But also,
it's improving.
But also, I know, actually, intuitively, I knew if I shared with him, the answer would be, well, you need to learn how to play better. It comes because you cannot play well. It's because you didn't practice well. And that would be the answer. And it's like, hurtful. don't blame me, enough of blaming me, please.
Yeah.
Anyways, so what happened is that I had to take the gap year in which I didn't practice, I didn't touch piano at all. And then I knew that second concerto of Rachmaninoff was coming, but I also needed to prepare Bach and classical sonata, which I've done. And right before, and I thought, okay, now concerta, and my focal dystonia crept in. So I couldn't even I typed with the phone with the pencil in my mouth. Like I typed on the keyboard with a pencil between the toes on my feet. And that's how I was, in real life. I couldn't even take the cup to drink. It was so heavy, couldn't hold it. So I realized I already took a gap year. I cannot take another gap year. I have to learn this whole concerta in my mind. And so I practiced the second concerto by Rachmaninoff in my mind till the very last week where I came to my to pianist and we play together just to get the rhythm going. This is where the first time I actually touched it, and just to kind of and I was just playing and I was like, okay, let's go to the last part. Which tempo are you taking in the last part? And then we're going to the last part. And so that was the only time we practiced together. And then 1 week later, I was performing in conservatory, playing for the very first time together with him the whole concerto by heart for the first time in the right tempo, which I've never done at my home. So I didn't get A, I got B. But if they knew that I prepared the whole concerto in my mind and I didn't touch the key, that would be like the ultimate proof that mental practice works,
The B doesn't mean anything with the amount that you just went through and accomplished.
I felt so happy. I didn't even care when I managed to, and you know what? I didn't make a single mistake. I didn't make a single technical mistake. It was incredible. I was overwhelmed with a feeling of accomplishment and a winner. I won. We're both competitive. I know the feeling. Everyone wants to have it. I won. I've done it. It was amazing. And that's how I graduated with my master's degree.
I think you need to insert like a clap track. You deserve it. Absolutely deserve it. I don't think there are many people in the world who can do what you have done.
I had to.
And mindset too.
It's so hard. We will all struggle so much. We all suffer so much.
That's what it means to be human. Like, we're all gonna struggle. We're all gonna suffer. So let's look on the bright side of things.
All right. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Is there anything else you would want me to ask you? Sorry, I went to myself too much.
No, it's okay. You have an amazing story, and I want you to share it too. I think more people
Thank
should
you.
know about it. I do have to ask you one question though. This is not about me, but I do have a question to ask you. You know how you said that your focal dystonia for you was like just a bump on the path, right? Is that something you can say now that you have gone through it, or did you feel that to be true while you were in it?
Well, when you're in it, it's impossible to feel. When you're in it, I understand why people say it's the biggest drama in their life. Because of course, I was going to teachers, they will tell me you will never play again. And then you think, 25 years of practice, total toss in the bin. And everything that I was trying to research was wrong. I mean, the amount of guilt here and the amount of self-punishment is, I think, enormous. So it's huge. And depression started right then when I was 24. And that's why I believe that the key point was to have a faith. I have a student, I had 2 students who had focal dystonia. And one of the students, he did everything right. And he was making me crying in the lesson because I saw transformation. But then his mind said it was coming from his wife. And then his mind said he felt very dreadful about it. He felt there's no way. And when he came to study with me, his mindset was, I'm going to use another thing to try to confirm that I cannot be healed. So that was for me very hurtful because no matter how much you want to give and help, if you're as a student if you're not having and knowing that you will recover, you cannot improve. That's the stone where everything else started growing from. If you don't have it inside, and like I said, for me, it was through letting other people believe that I can actually. When they were praying for me, they believed that I can recover. When I prayed to God, I believe that He can make miracles. I surrender myself as well. I surrender my ego. I surrender many things that I wanted to achieve. I believed that if I only have the pure desire to play well, that will be enough for me, for God to heal my hands, for Jesus to heal my hands. Very appropriate talk today, you know.
It is.
Easter. And yeah, it's an inner work of surrendering and to something bigger, and have a faith that that bigger can heal you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. So of course now it's, even if I have sometimes, like when I started typing my book, 2 years ago, I started doing my book, and I was working 10 hours every day, including weekends, 10 hours. And there was a lot of typing was involved. And especially when I started a project, I had lots of anxiety. So that was present as well. When I'm typing with anxiety for a long time, oh, hello, my friend. But this time, what I felt is that I didn't freak out, because I knew it takes only 3 days of not touching it and it goes away. And also knowing the exit, what to do to let the feeling not to start aggravating this feeling, but just, okay, I mean, how many times when you play and you feel pain, you want to play more because you think that the more you're going to play, the better you will feel. No, it's actually the playing will aggravate it. And so for the biggest part here is to stop, to know that you can stop without any anxiety, leave it for 3 days, and then when you come back, you're not going to have it. But it only works in the very first moments when you just start feeling this tingling here, when you recognize your old friend. And that's what I do sometimes. But the last time it happened was literally 2 years ago. So yeah, the exit strategy that works is also very important. Yeah.
I think because it's not easy in any way to surrender, let go of control, especially when you have fear and anxiety.
Yes.
Oh, try to hold it all in because of the ego or whatever it is you want to think. It is not easy. What you have done is not easy on any level. And having that exit strategy kind of helps you make that safe space to at least creep into that environment and to prove to yourself that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Also have that faith and stuff. So if anyone is really scared about letting go or surrendering to whatever it is, maybe having a little bit of an exit strategy or that brighter thing that you can look forward to that makes it worth trying to make it a bit easier, because at least in my life experience, which hasn't been a lot just yet, I've only been about 3 decades so far, everything you want is on the other side of fear. And you just gotta hop over the blip of fear. It's not easy though. I'm not saying it's easy at all. We can say this because, we're on the other side.
On the other side, yes.
You know?
Yeah, but it's the same what they say. It's what you feed, which wolf you feed. And for me, it's in a way, the word, I don't give a factor about it. So it basically means you don't charge it with any emotion. So when this happens, like it happened last time, I didn't charge it because it doesn't matter. I've done it. I know I can play. I know what was the reason behind it, and I know what helped me to heal, and I know it will never come back again the same way. and I know the exit strategy. As soon as I start having a first slight sensation of familiarity with that feeling, and so like I literally I don't give any emotional charge to it, and it always works. Last time I did. Yeah.
And yeah, and the next time it'll work again too.
Yeah, but I know that I shouldn't type anything when I'm in anxious state. But actually, in the past 2 years, I lived in a small village. So, example, how I removed myself from anxiety. So, I live in a very small village. I have a very good, supportive, small circle of friends. I live right near the forest, lots of nature. There's 300 people in the village. There's nice traditional music outside the church. There is a dog that I love, a partner that I love, people who treat me with love. And there are only very few students that I have. I had to let go of students that would give me any anxiety. I only have students who appreciate so much what I give, who are giving me as much as I give them. And it's a very little amount of students. And I play only the music I want to play, only when I want to play. And I perform every week, but it's in a very good environment where I will feel welcomed and appreciated. And so this feeling of security, safety, peace and love, that's another thing that you should cultivate if you have focal dystonia.
Or just anything in life, really. I mean, with the focal dystonia too, but
Yeah.
I can only wish to everybody in this world that you'll be able to find that safe, secure place full of love and light, because that's where you're really gonna bloom.
But again, like we talked about this last session, it comes to you when you want it, because maybe you don't want it. Maybe part of you don't want it. But again, you have to just surrender that, okay, this is the way. Yeah.
There will always be an emotion, usually fear, that is going to hold you back because it doesn't like change. But sometimes you have to go say, fear, thank you. I'm gonna not choose you today. Let's try something else. And it's hard to do, but I promise you it gets easier the more you do it.
Have you encountered, have you had to face such challenges in your life where you had to choose love over fear?
Yes. Very recently, maybe, I would say, like last year was probably the most recent thing. I'm still working the muscle of choosing love over fear every day. As I heal from what happened like last year, I would say my piano journey is the same way too. That part of the healing, like I didn't say, I just gave like a huge rundown of it, but there's more. But part of it in the piano journey was the thing that also aggravated my injuries and everything else. It wasn't just like, oh, mind body connection technique and listen to music, stuff like that. It was the fight of, if I'm going to heal or if I'm going to find something on the other end, I'm going to have to let go of piano and classical music for a little bit, and I have to leave this world. And it's the surrendering of this love for it. And then it almost seems crazy because it's like, I love this so much. I'm working so hard for it. And there's that gripping of, holding on that causes all this stuff. It's like, why would I want to let go of something that I love so much and surrender to that? Because I don't know if I'm ever going to come back to it. Or if I'm going to come back to loving it the same way, if at all. And it's very scary.
Yeah.
But that was something in me, and is also still in me, that I have to leave this for a little bit in order to find my way back. If that is what's going to happen.
I had
We'll
it.
see. I don't know.
Yeah, I had it. In my case, it came back.
Yeah.
So, very good chance it came back to you. But it's that
surrender. Old
surrender.
conversation of like, what do you want, right? If I want to come back to it, the path will be there.
Yeah.
There's really nothing to fear.
Yeah. The only thing we surrender is our hunger anyway, is our ego hunger.
It's a good thing to surrender. So
yeah, it's like you want to surrender that. It's like you're not surrendering any love here, right? You actually surrender something not good, something that is not love, the absence of love, to have love. So like, yeah. I'm ready for it, right?
A version of love. Like, I think I would want that.
Yeah.
So, everyone go do your inner work. Go figure out what you want.
Yes. No, you're doing great. Well done.
Thank you. I mean, it's a painful process, but like, it'll be brighter on the other side.
Yeah, have a faith. Pray to Jesus.
I pray to Jesus to heal my hands too.
It's a good day to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.